Welcome to the Punk Rock Drummers Podcast, episode 8, with
8. Oh, am
Yuri.
I supposed to?
Uh, I'll say it, Yuri
Okay.
Ruley. Is that how you say his last name, Ruley?
No, I guess we'll find out if he emails you and says you said my fucking name wrong.
I meant to ask him and I forgot, but I think it is Ruley, Ruley.
I mean, it
Super
makes
cool
sense.
guy, very, very down to earth. Not what you would expect from a rock star.
Yeah, he's a nice dude. It was a
Very
fun
sweet.
chat.
Yeah,
It's cool, man. I'm enjoying like getting to learn more about bands that I'm not like super familiar with.
hmm.
So it was cool kind of hearing the history and how we got into playing and learning all that stuff. It was interesting.
Yeah, it was a cool one for me because I've been a fan since probably 94. And Yuri was a drummer that I watched and tried to mimic some and um and I really loved how he keeps everything really simple and we talked about that. And that's something I always appreciate. It's almost like that less is more philosophy with drumming. You don't have to be crazy, to sound cool or good or anything like that. He keeps it simple. He plays to the song, and I think it makes it sound really good. He's the perfect drummer for MXPX.
Yeah, buddy. Where are you right now? What you got going on behind you? You're not in your normal studio.
I'm in Tampa, Florida right now. I've got a show tomorrow with Down by Law. I'm playing drums for Down by Law, and we're playing with Face to Face in St. Petersburg tomorrow. I think we play at 8:45 at Janice Live is what it's called in St. Pete. And then Friday we're playing a show where we headline. It's not with Face to Face, unfortunately, but still going to be a really cool show. That's in Melbourne, Florida,
So
Friday
when this
night.
comes out, that'll be today that you're playing
Yes.
in Florida. Okay.
Yes. So if you're in Melbourne, Florida, come see me tonight. And I can't remember the name of the club. I'm sorry.
That's okay. They can just use their Google machines.
Yeah, Google is your friend. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
me some Google.
Yes. Um, yeah, cool.
I don't have any of my sponsorship stuff. I don't have my bag of rhythm and roast. I don't have my sleeve washers.
I
Not
have
sponsored.
my
Yeah,
cup here, my Rhythm and Roast coffee mug.
right.
Um, if you go to rhythmroastcoffee.com, use the code Punk Rock Drummers, you get 10% off a bag of coffee, and the owner will personally deliver it to your house on a unit. He'll ride a Pegasus, and he'll throw individual coffee beans into your belly button while you sleep, and that's how babies are made.
Yeah, for
What?
sure. Yeah.
And then, also Parkway Music in Clifton Park, New York, parkwaymusic.com. You can go there and buy some nice snare drums or guitars or basses. Um, yeah, I guess that's it.
Wait, basis is?
That's plural bass guitars.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
I don't know. I don't know. Why don't you write it down with your pen on your pink pillow?
Well, hey, I want to give another shout out to Dan Cano. I think it's Cano. I forgot to ask him. Super cool guy. I met him yesterday. He's letting me borrow some drums. So he hooked me up with a really nice PDP kit for these two Florida shows. Um, Clearwater Drum Rental. It's in Clearwater, Florida. And basically you can rent drums. It's a studio. I went there. It's amazing. He has like a million drums. Did you see the video I sent?
I did.
He has a million drum kits there. So if you need to rent a drum kit, they are on Instagram at Clearwater Drummer Rental. Uh, and they don't have a website yet. So I told him to get a website. But right now, Clearwater Drum Rental. There. That's better.
There you go.
Really nice guy, hooked me up. I can't thank him enough. So thank you so much, Dan. So you ready to get into this?
Yeah, buddy.
People don't want to hear us talk, so let's do it. Good. Good to
Good.
see
I'm
you.
doing well. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you too.
you're coming through. So I was
I
messing
like
with
the setup
these.
back there, some guitars. Nice.
Oh yeah, that's my pawn shop special back there.
Nice.
I hardly know. It's my
Like it.
bass. I hardly know how to play. It's just there for looks.
I have action figures because I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Hey, that's okay.
Nice.
I have friends that still play with action figures and they're in their mid 40s, so there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
I don't play with them. I keep them in the box.
That's true.
Duh. Jeez, Matt. Come on.
Hi, Yuri. What's going on, man? You doing all right?
Oh, I'm not too much. Just yeah, I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah, thank
How's the
you.
weather up there?
Thank you for
Yeah.
well, actually, the weather for the last couple of days has been amazing. So, um, yeah, the weather up here at this time of year is very hit or miss. Like it'll be rainy for a week solid, or or the classic Monday through Friday, it's beautiful. Wake up Saturday morning, it's raining. Like
And
Right.
for the listeners,
that
where
kind
are
of
you?
thing. Oh,
Where?
I'm sorry. I'm up in Bremerton, Washington, which is about an hour from Seattle.
Okay, cool. And
Yeah,
Matt's
in the
in
great Pacific Northwest.
nice. So
Yeah.
Matt's in Texas and I'm in upstate New York. So today it is 75
Oh,
and
okay, nice.
tomorrow it'll snow. So it's great.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so much fun.
So, yeah.
We're having Bremerton weather right now.
Nice.
It's raining, but it does this every spring, so
Oh,
it's muggy.
yeah. Uh, yeah,
Y-
that's the one nice thing about up here is it doesn't get too muggy too often. So, yeah.
I
Lucky.
find that the older you get, the worse muggy weather is. It just gets like
Yeah. Yeah, me
unbearable in your
too.
40s, dude.
Absolutely.
It's the worst thing, man.
I'm ready to move to like middle America where it's,
Uh,
the average temperature is 75 degrees and, and the older I get, this Texas heat, I can't stand.
oh,
It's so bad.
right? Yeah.
I
Oh
wanted to
my
move to
gosh.
Middle
Yeah,
Earth, but I
absolutely.
found out that was just from a movie, so can't move there.
Yeah, the weather there looks amazing.
And
So,
there's elves. Anyways,
yeah, let's talk some
Yeah.
drums.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
it's, I've I've been a fan forever, since I was like 14, I think. I'm 45 now. And you were one of the first drummers that I really kind of latched onto and was like, hey, I want to play like that. I really like your style. And so I know quite a bit about your playing just
Oh, that's
from
cool.
listening and mimicking over, the last 30 years or so. And I'm sure I have a million questions,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
now I can't remember anything because I'm on the spot.
Of course.
That's how it
Yeah, that's
works.
the way it goes.
well, I think we should ask
Yeah.
the question that everyone's dying to know the answer to. Is Mike a vampire?
Yeah.
Herrera?
Is
Is that,
Mike a vampire?
I don't think I've seen him age in the
Oh,
past
because
20
he.
years.
Yeah, I know, I know. I see him drinking blood in the back room every now and then. So yeah, maybe no, no. He's man. That guy, he takes care of himself. Yeah, he does.
Boo, boo.
That's no fun.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I know. There's no like secret. It's just you gotta eat right and exercise.
I don't like either of those things.
Yeah, that's
So
not a secret at all.
I guess
I
I'll
know.
just be cold and weird. But kidding
Yeah.
aside, man, I would love to, excuse me, kind of start with like how you got into drumming, like around how old you were, and then how did that
Yeah.
transition to punk, or was it just straight into playing punk rock right off the rip for you?
Right, right. Yeah. So my musical, journey that is still going on started in junior high school, right at the tail end of junior high. Not well, yeah, ninth grade was junior high. Last year of junior high for me. We had like this school assembly. I guess this was at the beginning of ninth grade. We had a school assembly, and it was there was a band that played, and the drummer of that band was Tom Wisniewski, and so that was the first time I'd ever seen like a band live. They did a cover of Enter Sandman, which at the time was like the biggest song on the radio, and it to my ninth grade ears, it sounded just like the recording, and it was incredible. And so that was really, I think, the moment that kind of sparked my uh inspiration. Like, wow, that was amazing. I want to do that, you know. And so drums wasn't my first choice though. The bass was what really grabbed my attention. I honestly, and it was just the way it looked. You know, it wasn't anything about it other than the way it looked. These big four fat strings. I'm like, that thing is cool, you know. Um, but then that kind of faded off, and then within the following months, I just started grabbing anything that was like drumstick like out of the kitchen drawers, and getting pots out of the drawers and stuff like that, and banging on stuff. Like, I really don't know what it was, but that kind of drew me to it. Other than that, it is really cool. But at the time, it just sort of was totally natural. And then asked my mom, "Hey, can I get a drum set?" And she was surprisingly willing, to do that for me. So I got my first drum set like at the beginning of '92 or something like that,
You forgive
and
me, I'm
started
gonna
taking lessons.
have to interrupt you for a second. Was it wine red?
Yes, it
I do.
was.
I can do it. Everyone's first drum set. Anyways, go ahead. I digress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was no label on it, but it was very CB 700-ish, you know. But yes, it was wine red. Um, yeah, that kit got me through my first couple of years. But yeah, started taking lessons, and then in high school joined school band. Oh yeah, I met Mike. That's kind of a big deal. I met Mike at the end of ninth grade. He had been playing. Uh, he had been playing with an older friend of his. Well, not older, an old friend of his, named Andy. They kind of grew up together, and they were playing together with no drummer. I guess they had a few people sit in here and there, but just nothing really worked. And I actually was just, I didn't know him really, but like I was just hearing him. I was hearing overhearing a conversation between him and another friend, like a mutual friend of ours, where he was like looking for a drummer. And I had been playing for maybe 3 months at that time. And I jokingly just kind of like interjected and said, "Oh, I play the drums." And he like immediately was like, "Oh, really?" Like kind of
You're like, "Oh
latched on. And I
no."
was only yeah, I was like kind of half kidding. I mean, I was a drummer, but very new, and you know. So anyway, but we set up a meetup for the following week to jam, and so they brought their stuff over to my house, and Mike had like already written like 50 songs or something. He had a cassette with like 50 songs, and he'd only been playing like a year at that time. Like, so just immediately, I was like, oh wow, this is incredible. Because I had played around with some other friends, like we did a talent show in ninth grade, and it was such a struggle to get a song, anything going, right? Like, because everyone was so new at their instrument, and then writing music just seemed like conjuring spirits or something. So we did a cover, and it was pretty bad, but it was fun. I loved it. But yeah, meeting Mike and um, seeing that he'd already written all these songs, I was like, oh wow, this is great. So we ran through, I think, about a dozen of his songs that he had written, and came up with drum parts and stuff. And I punk rock was new to me at that time. This was, I was like 15, and so my favorite band at the time was The Cure, who I'd loved since I was like 13 years old. So, but like other friends of mine were listening to like the Dead Milkmen and the Misfits, and the Descendants were in there. but Mike actually introduced me to a lot of stuff I'd never heard of, like All. I'd never heard of All before, and the Descendants and All, kind of another story. But yeah, that was like you were saying. That's how I want to play. When you heard me, like this, that was the same way that I was like with the Descendants. But yeah, so that first practice, I think went well enough that we were all like, yeah, let's do this. So that was like um, kind of the very beginning of MXPX. We were all in junior high school, the end of junior high for us, and then so we just school let out, and we just basically hit practice. We were practicing like every day. Our first performance was a backyard barbecue at Mike's house, well, his parents' house. And that was it. We just went from there.
You mean that loser didn't own a home at 15?
Right. I know. What the heck?
I had a mansion, but
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
insane.
totally.
It's
Me too.
insane
Me too.
how quickly a lot of, I don't know if it's just punk rock, but it's insane how people can go, yeah, I picked up a drum set, and and then you record what, Poking at Ya, or what, what was the first album? Was it that next year, 92? When, or was it 94 when you first did an album?
Yeah, 94, summer of 94 was when we recorded Poking at Ya. So yeah, I'd been playing 2.5 years at that point. But yeah, I mean, so I took it seriously, but and Mike still to this day, 30 plus years later, is definitely like the hardest working guy I've ever met. Like he's just relentless, his drive just to keep grinding. Uh, he was like that from the day I met him. He just had this like work ethic, like we just got to keep going and going and going and going and going. So we practiced a lot, as much as we could. I mean, we're obviously still in high school, and we had like weekends and stuff like that. And we were playing as much as we could too, setting up our own shows when we, couldn't get on a bill or something. And this is all totally local, like within Bremerton and the surrounding towns and stuff. Yeah. And then we met Aaron Sprinkle, who was in a band called Poor Old Lou at the time. And they brought us over to play in Seattle, which was a trip. Yeah, that was kind of what got things moving beyond Bremerton for us. Yeah.
Was that after Poking at Ya, or was that a little before that?
Sorry, that was before. That was the build up to Poking at Ya. That was like that, being a part of that little music scene in Seattle was what introduced us to Brandon Evil, who had just started Tooth and Nail Records at that time. And Aaron Sprinkle was talking to Brandon about, hey, you might be interested in these guys. They're kind of, there's punk and stuff. And so we recorded like a 4-song demo with Aaron Sprinkle in a little studio in a old school in Seattle. And that was our first recording experience. Yeah. And so we sent that off to Brandon, and that's what started the conversations. And that would have been somewhere in 93 or early 94 or something like that. Yeah. So we talked to Brandon. Yeah. It must have been for about, it felt like, of course, my memory, this is many years ago, but it felt like about a year we were kind of mulling over what we wanted to do. Did we want to do a 7-inch? Did we want to do several 7-inches? Did we, EP, that kind of thing, until we finally landed on, let's do a record. So yeah, in the summer between 11th and 12th grade, we went over to Seattle and recorded Poking at Ya in like, I think it was like 2 weeks. Yeah, with Aaron Sprinkle producing. Yeah. And I think he was 18. He was old.
yeah, that's a trip.
Yeah.
It's funny that I noticed when you were talking about like starting and stuff like that. So you got to grow as a drummer, but your sole purpose, maybe that's a bit of a strong way to word it, but it was cool how you learned to play to that band. Like a lot of people grow up kind of practicing
Absolutely.
to other stuff, but you got to like grow as a drummer and write, but like stay with the same people, which I think is incredibly helpful. And probably helped a lot of you being able to, you know, a little, hone in a little bit more and play what's necessary. It's not like you jumped in and felt like there's another drummer that I got to kind of prove myself equal or better to, and not overplaying and really just doing what the song serves, right?
Right, exactly. And I'll be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing, but um, you know, still to this day, from then, like what you end up hearing is really like a consensus, between all the band members. Like, it's like I'll throw out ideas when we're writing, by just playing something that comes to mind, and it'll either get like thumbs up or thumbs down, or like, hey, maybe we just tweak it a little bit. So, yeah, yeah, I've been learning. Yeah, sorry, just to reiterate what you're saying. Yeah, it's been cool to learn that way, and I was drawing inspiration, oddly enough. Well, I was also in school band during during high school. Tom and I both were in school band. We were both drummers. Um, and I learned a lot from that, the marching and all that kind of stuff. It
That's probably
definitely
where
helped my playing
the
and
stamina probably helped a
informed a
lot
lot of.
too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Being in marching band is tough. Yeah, and a lot of the real just kind of fast fills and doing like playing, 16ths and 30 seconds like all the time. That was definitely like school band stuff. And yeah, my early like I list, when I'm listening to Pokinatcha, or if we're trying to like um you know bring back a song from Pokinatcha to throw it in a set or one of our live streams. Um it's like covering some other band. Like I don't play that way anymore, like I was very busy, and just the way that stuff moved was just different. And it's not even necessarily like age, it's more of like I like my brain just won't do that anymore or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but yeah, our first couple records, I'm like, holy cow, like wow, this is a lot.
You've always
And it's because I mean,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh no, I was just gonna say, it's been the art of like refining, you know, kind of taking out what isn't necessary. But back then it was just like balls to the wall, just everything. So, which is fun, which definitely has a place, and it's total. I'm not knocking that at all, but it's just I've just kind of moved away from that over the years.
Yeah, and I've noticed this for a long time is the drumming, your drumming is almost I don't want to call it minimalist, but it's very much what the song needs. There's not you don't play a lot of cymbals. You don't do a lot of like tom stuff. You're very like true
Right.
to the song. Like snare, kick, hi-hat, and even like your kick sometimes, when it's like kind of like that mid-tempo fast, it's like boom da boom da ba da. You're not doing a whole bunch of stuff to muddy up the song, and I always love that, and that's what I kind of latched
Mm,
onto when I was learning to play.
that's cool. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. I mean, that was um a lot of that, was working with um Steve Kravac, who produced Life in General and Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo. He really um, was the one that made me realize, like, what is the role of the kick? What is the role of the snare? I mostly knew, but like he definitely like defined it much more clearly for me. And and so yeah, from then on, that definitely was like, okay, that's basically how I've approached kick and snare, you know. And I there are times where I want to do more, but it's like yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I want to serve the song. You know, I've never been like, I mean, watching amazing flashy drummers, you know, Travis Barker, et cetera, et cetera. I appreciate that. I appreciate what they do and what they bring, but like that's just not me, you know, and it never has been. I'm not flashy. I don't want to be flashy. I just want to make the song punch as much as it can, you know.
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean, I
I'm
don't
still
think.
working on that, you know, every time.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say I'm still working on that. That is still something I don't feel I've reached the pinnacle. I probably never will, but
Right.
you
But I
know,
don't think it
that's
would.
kind of the
Don't think it would sound good with what you guys play. I mean, that's what I was saying is like
mm,
you play what is necessary for the songs. And I've always kind of liked the fact that like when a ton of crazy stuff is what missing from a song, I'll notice that it's too busy before I notice a simple part. The simple parts, like I think the role of most
right,
drummers in most bands is to sort of be kind of unnoticed in a way, right? I mean, stage presence and stuff like that aside.
right.
And that's kind of why like Matt and I really wanted to do this, is because I think there's a lot more going into the writing process, and how you're tuning your drums and what you want to get out of it, that really
Yeah,
affects the sound of a band. And it's just so cool that you have been
yeah.
that sound for how many years now?
Uh, coming up on 33
I mean, that's
years.
got to
Yeah,
feel
which
great
is
to have that, like, that
it's
kinship
crazy.
with those dudes for so long too.
It's kind of unreal. Like it. Yeah, I mean, I I love that I still am doing this. I still get to do this. There was a time where I actually stepped back from the band for a couple of years, about 13, 12, 13 years ago. It's been a while
Oh,
now.
I thought you were going to say for that long. I was like, I don't.
No,
I
no,
was
no.
like, that's a
It
big
was
gap, buddy.
a couple of years where I was basically like, you know, I asked Mike and Tom to just kind of like yeah, I mean, I basically quit the band, you know. Well, from like 2010 to 2015, really, it was like kind of, it was like one foot out, one foot in, sort of. It was a crazy time. My kids were really young. It's kind of like marriage on the rocks, you know, life kind of stuff. Uh, and something kind of had to give, and it was the band, and the guys were really cool about it. But thankfully, you know, Mike never stopped reaching out, and eventually my life kind of settled down to the point where I could, you know, devote the necessary time to the band. And um but anyways, the point, yeah, it's been 33 years, and it's like that cliche, aging like fine wine, you know, like it for me, I enjoy it, I think, so much more because I have a perspective of someone that's almost 50, you know, versus someone that's 20 and just is like almost takes it for granted, you know.
Right.
And now I'm like, man, I really so appreciate that we can still get up there and do what we do. Yeah.
That's cool. Matt, I'm sorry. I know, Matt, you probably have a question, but I just wanted to follow up before we get too far. Were they kind of just inactive during that break, or did they have like a stand-in while you were gone, or did they just kind of mellow out for a while themselves too?
It was kind of all of that. I mean, it was never stagnant. Like I was saying, you know, Mike kept doing stuff. He had a side project called Tumble Down, and he was doing more with Tumble Down. He also did have what they called the MXPX All Stars, which was a way to kind of differentiate. Hey, this is Mike with some other guys.
That's cool that he did that
So
though.
I think Chris Rowe from the Ataris was part of that for a little while. Yeah. And then yeah, he had just other guys that he had met on his travels and stuff like that that he pulled in. Some of the guys from Tumbledown. He met some guys in Europe that filled in for a while.
Nice.
And yeah, so he kept it going, but it was like 2015 was when I came back. And so yeah, since 2015 it's been me, Mike, and Tom, and then Chris uh, Atkins, who's been our second guitarist since 2016. So yeah,
Must have felt
been a
great to.
consistent lineup for 9 years.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was
It's
incredible.
got
Yeah.
to be tough. It's like this is what you've known for so many years, and then you know, I've kind of gone through that with some of the bands I've been in too, and it's just weird, but you always kind of get back together and you it just all comes back and it feels good and you just do it again and I, I I don't know. I mean, I understand life. It gets busy, I've had a kid and life just gets crazy and people understand. So, but I'm glad you're back in it. I'm glad you're doing it because it's really refreshing to see you guys play. I see like your
Yeah.
little live feeds that you do and stuff like that. It's really great.
Yeah, those are a ton of fun actually.
Yeah, I like the camera work, kind of going around you and all that stuff. It's really cool. So,
Yeah, the guys that do that are yeah, it's like they're like when they get done, it's like, an hour of basically like flexing your biceps, holding the camera and the gimbal and everything. It's like, oh, they're exhausted too.
so I remember being like, 15 or 16 or whatever, and there was this little church called God's Place that you guys would play at in my town of Arlington, Texas.
Yeah.
And I remember being up on stage and like watching you play. Like that place,
Hmm.
everyone was up on stage. It was insane. But I remember watching you do that, I guess what you call the gallop beat. The boom dup, 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 or no effects beat or whatever
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
What does
Yep.
Smelly Matt? What does Smelly refer to that beat as?
I'm not gonna say it.
Matt won't swear. It's adorable. I love it.
But
It's the BFTF. We'll
yeah,
call it, right?
yeah, the Gallup beat is what I call it. And I just remember just being so
Okay.
obsessed with it because, they called me a cheater because I used the double bass pedal. And I
Well, you
always
are.
felt so stupid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, to get that sound. And it just never sounded right. And I was always so obsessed with watching how you did that. And like I'm curious, how did you
Yeah.
learn to play that and play it consistently and have the
Good one.
stamina for it?
Yeah, well, I do have to thank Smelly for that, and even uh Bobby Scher from Bad Religion and Pete Finestone. Kind of the first two drummers of Bad Religion. Because Bad Religion they did that, but it was different. It was like a little slower, maybe. That was the doop bop ba boop bop ba boop bop. That was kind of more of that. But yeah, definitely Smelly, like the no effect stuff. Um, yeah, it took a while. It really did take a while for me to get to the point where I could do that, where it's like kind of like hard to describe, but I guess sort of like surfing or whatever, and you like get up, catch that wave, and you just ride it out. It got to the point where that's what it felt like, where it just like felt like I was like, just kind of like surfing or something. Um, but yeah, the memories I have of learning that, I was like, because I think Mike had asked me, oh, got to do that or whatever. Maybe I don't remember. But yeah, I wish I had a better story about that. But it did. I remember it taking a while from moving because when I first started with Mike and Andy, who was in the band for the first couple of years, like I was just pretty straight, doop ba doop ba doop ba doop ba, like, and then it went from that to the punk beat or whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah. But yeah, I just practiced and practiced and practiced until it finally felt natural. Yeah.
Man, I'm
And then
still trying to do
now
it.
it is like riding a bike. I can't I cannot forget it. It's always there.
Well, I
That's
sometimes
awesome.
wonder
Yeah.
too over like the period of time of like I had, I started playing probably around like 12, but was like really just metal, metal, metal. And then when I got into more I think I mean Matt's heard me say this a million times, but Sepultura was actually like I saw Sepultura, I
Mhm.
got an album, they thanked Sick of It All. They had a Discharge sticker on their guitar. So I actually got into punk through that way. But the way he would play those blast beats was very just boot tap, boot tap, boot tap, boot tap. But I remember kind of like hearing that double kick for the first time, and how much harder it was. And then at 18, I got an Iron Cobra. And I was like,
Oh,
this
nice.
made it a little bit easier. And then even just through years
Yeah.
of suffering that, and then I finally bought like recently like one of those longboard pedals with like the direct drive option on it. And it's like, dude, it's
Oh, yeah.
funny. Is like I want to say it's feel like I'm cheating a little bit, but it's just so consistent. But yeah, that's a big thing that I think the biggest challenge of playing that beat is getting the second hit to be as consistent as the first one and not have it kind of go.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I think we all suffered with that for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I remember, I want to say it was Life in General and slowly going over the Buffalo. So the Steve Kravac produced records. Um, yeah, he really got after me about that. And, there's only so much you can do. I think just by the nature of that beat, the doubles are never going to be as loud as the single. But yeah, he really emphasized, like, really focus on those doubles to get them harder. So that record was very hard work. Definitely worth it. But like, that was the first time we had ever been produced, really, where someone actually was like, no, do it again, do it again, do it again. Not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Before it was like, did you get through it? All right,
You're
cool, that's
right.
good.
Yep. Yep.
you know.
Do you remember any techniques that you tried? I know you said you kind of have a little bit of limited memory of it, but were there any techniques that you tried, like
Yeah.
putting weights on your legs, or was it just doing it over and over and
Mm.
over again?
Yeah, it was just the repetition and the Iron Cobra was mentioned. I think my first real pedal was a DW 5000, and that did help, having a properly weighted pedal and all that definitely made a big difference. But no, I never tried any, like you were saying, like, yeah, weights or anything like that. It was just repetition until, or I just would not let myself give up, and also, like, we practice so much that helped a ton too. And things just kind of naturally got a little faster, where a song might have started out, you know, 20 BPM slower than where it ended up. But just with that gradual pushing myself to practice, I just remember when I finally got it, it was in a band practice. It was not in a solo practice. I was like, oh, cool. Yes. But yeah, once I got it, I feel like that was it. Yeah. Which is weird because that's not the way it typically is.
Yeah. I think a lot of drummers
Yeah.
struggle with that, and there is always the shortcut, the boom da ba boom da ba boom da.
Yeah. And I do that for the stuff that's a little slower,
Sure.
because for me, it's funny. Like, once I get into that beat, it's kind of gotta be a certain tempo. Like, it's like I know what it's supposed to feel like, and that's what I go with. Like, we've had a couple songs where it used that beat, but it was a little slower, and it was really hard.
Yeah, you feel like
Yeah,
you're falling over almost. It's like you're off balance.
yeah, right, exactly, exactly. So yeah, unless it's that like hyper speed, I will do the other stuff, the boot dap ba boop bap, and sometimes boop bap ba boot dap ba bap. Something a little more. Depends on what the guitars are doing. That's kind of always what dictates, or whatever the strumming pattern is always what dictates what I'm gonna do for kick and snare. So for the most part. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it more like are you following Mike's bass? Are you kind of reading off that more than anything else?
Yeah, or Tom, just because I can, for some reason, it's a little maybe visually easier to see what he's doing. But yeah, it'll be kind of like especially when the songs are new, like Tom might not even be playing exactly what Mike was wanting. Because we like when Mike comes to practice with songs, like, we'll get through a new song quickly. It just boom. And sometimes it's too quick for me where I'm like, whoa, hold on. Um, and I'm getting better at saying like, hey, can we run that part again? um, but yeah, it'll be a combination of kind of whatever I can see or hear more. And sometimes I'll have to have them stop and, hey, can you just play that? You just play that. Okay. All right. And then I'll play along with it and be like, all right, that's the right thing. And sometimes it's a real subtle change. There was a song we were working on recently where it was kind of like a slow, like kind of a hardcore breakdown thing, and I knew the kick pattern I was doing wasn't right, but and it was like, but we were just kind of, everyone was going through it, and then it was like, hey, can we do that again? And again, same situation where I just had Mike play it, and I just sort of came up with the kick pattern that sort of emphasized the right, you know, beats at the right time or whatever. And then we ran it again full band, and everyone was like, "Yes, that's it." So that it's always worth it for me to have that, to not let something that's not quite right go. Like, all right, let's stop and back to the, back to the, you know,
Is that
back to the starting line with that. So.
has that generally been the writing process throughout the years? As Mike kind of comes to the table with some ideas and you guys figure the rest out together, or some of it just like, I mean, do you have
Yeah.
essentially have the freedom for drum parts, or
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Mike, it's basically been the same situation. Like, so, like I said, when we first started, Mike had already written 50 songs in a year. So it was kind of that way for a really long time. It's like, clearly this guy is the songwriter guy, and we're the band. And it was never like delineated specifically that way. I did write a guitar part and present, and like show it to him, and he was like, "Oh, that's cool." And he ended up writing a song around like a riff that I had written. And but
Schrader?
yeah,
You were like the
99.
Ringo.
Right, 99. Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, so yeah, Mike will come with songs. He writes almost entirely on the acoustic guitar. So and we don't always get to hear the demos. Most of the time we do, but like he'll just say, "Okay, here's this." He'll like kind of show Tom and Chris the chords, and then now it's actually kind of nice. Now he's printing out the lyrics. We're basically getting charts, so which I appreciate. So I can kind of make notes of like, okay, because I'm visual, and so getting to see the song kind of plotted out a little bit. There's no very rarely will Mike have any parts for drums like pre-written. Sometimes, but pretty rarely. So he might say, "Oh, this one song." Sometimes he's gonna have like, "Okay, for the bridge, I want to do this like Tom thing." But it's never much more than that. As far as the suggestion, it's um. So we'll get to that part, and I'll kind of do what I think sounds the best first shot, and then it'll be adjusted from there, like more or less, and I'll just try some different things until we're all like, yeah, that's cool, that's cool. But like, I'm always because when we demo material, um, it's kind of like my first guess, it's our first impression. So, and a lot of those ideas stay till the recording, but some of them don't. Like, we normally will run these songs over and over and over and over until they are kind of refined. Some more, some less, depending. Um, and getting to listen back to the demos from the previous practice or whatever has always been really beneficial to me because I have always struggled with really being able to be a critical listener of my own parts when I'm playing them. It's only on the listening back where I'm like, okay, no, that needs adjustment. This fill should be longer, shorter, whatever, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, for
that's been
sure.
the way we've done things for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you record it and then you listen like, a month later or something. You're like, man, wish I would have done this.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I do
Oh
that all the
yeah.
time.
Oh yeah. I think every record I've done, even to the last one, I was like, should have done this differently.
But to me,
It
as an
wasn't
outsider,
bad. It was just, yeah,
yeah, it sounds
yeah,
good to it only does that to us. It only affects us that way.
right, right, exactly, exactly. So sometimes I will, if we end up playing that song live or whatever, the song that I have like a thing I wasn't super happy with, I'll play that part live. And yeah,
Oh,
and
for
I
sure.
mean, it's never life changing. It's never like so different that it's like, oh, what? It's just a minor change. Like instead of sixteenths on the snare, I wish I would have like done those on the toms. It's it's always very minor, but
Yeah. I'm
yeah.
one of those that I don't like to do the same fill every time because I don't know, I just like to change it up. But sometimes
Right.
it calls for it to do the same fill. It just makes sense, but I'm always cognizant of that. I'm like, I already did that fill. Let's change up the next, because the song will repeat, obviously. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you're like I don't know
Yep.
if you think like that or not, but uh I certainly do, and it drives me insane.
I do. Yeah, I do. Sometimes there are songs where like a fill or even just like a pickup uh will be sort of a feature in a way. So I will keep that the same because it'll be like, oh, it's sort of, just its function seems to be the way that that pickup functions. It wants to be the same thing. But yeah, actually, it's funny. Like just recently, because we're in the demoing process right now. We've had a bit of a some downtime most of the year so far, just work stuff, but we're getting back into it and starting to demo, and I'm like, I want to do some new fills. I want to do some new, I guess, not rudiments per se, but like the Herta. Like that's something I've never done, and I was like, I love the way those sound. I kind of want to work that into it. So it's like the first time in a while where I was like, I want to push myself a little harder than I have been to do some stuff that's a little outside of my comfort zone and just do something that's cool. Uh,
It's funny that
so
you
yeah, I've
say
been
that though,
practicing.
knowing I think there might be a little delay
Yeah, just
here,
a little
but
bit.
no, but I think that's interesting, especially learning after like you came up playing um
Yeah,
in marching band and in school band, and it's funny how many of us grow up
yeah,
practicing rudiments on a pad, and I mean I didn't start applying the kit until 2 years ago, which is
all right,
crazy.
yeah.
Of like the Radimacue is I talked about it all the time, but that's become like my favorite um transition from fast to like a mid tempo to get that little like roll in there. So I
Oh,
think it's cool that you're starting to apply that stuff in, and I'm surprised you didn't do it sooner with the marching band background.
well, I've done it somewhat. I've done, but the paradiddle classic.
Hmm.
That one I've used. That one I've used. But like, um, yeah, just there's a guy, Elon Rubin,
Hmm.
uh, who had written a book, and I got a copy of that, and I'm working through that right now. And yeah, and got to the Herta, and I was like, I love these things, but it's not real comfortable for me to play yet. So I'm get back, back to feeling like I'm 15 again, and working through these patterns that are just not natural.
Hmm.
But it's a good feeling, to be able to kind of have that beginner's mindset and not go, oh, I've been playing for 33 years, like I want things to be fresh still, and I mean, I like my drumming. And it, like you said, it is kind of minimalist, like with the idea that it's supporting the song more than itself, I guess. But there are definitely times for a little, something special here or there. And I just kind of I want the people that have been listening to the band for a long time to go, oh, okay, nice, nice, like that.
Yeah, we're gonna see a new new Yuri on the next MXPX record.
So you're saying this next MXPX record is full on prog, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
just full of
metal.
prog record.
Yes,
You're
full
like, no,
prog.
absolutely not.
I want to
I
hear
gotta
those
Yeah.
ask. So,
Hertas.
oh, sorry.
I'll be listening for those Hertas and maybe
Okay.
throw in some
Yeah, I
triplets.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead, Christian.
I'm gonna need a linear 9-stroke roll, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I watch a lot of drummers on Instagram, and I'm like, holy cow. Okay,
I
Stop doing
watched
that.
gospel
I
chop.
watched Thomas Lang, and I want to just cut all of my appendages off. Like I
Yeah.
watched that dude play like two different rudiments with his hands and with his feet at the same time. I'm like, dude, save some good for the rest of us, please. Like that guy's
Right.
just, it's a monster. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, man. I remember watching Stuart Copeland, like an interview with him, saying that like he kind of does the same thing where he'll play things differently, but there are some fills where if he's like, if I don't play that one fill in that one song, everyone in
Yeah.
the crowd is air
Yeah.
drumming. Like, do you have one of those that like you just see, like you look out in the crowd, you can kind of see everyone air drumming along to what you're playing, and if you didn't do it, would they be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Um, I don't think so. I know I saw that video with, I think it was yeah, with Stewart and Rick Beato.
Mm-hmm.
Um that digga digga that digga that digga digga that. I don't think so. I don't think I have a fill like that. I mean, maybe you guys could tell me, but um there have been, mostly I stick to the script, Um but there have been a few shows where the spirit has just like, taken me over, and I've done quite a bit of improv, and just what, mostly again, not like screwing up the rhythm or anything, but like different fills, longer fills, bigger fills, maybe switching up, you know, toms for the hats or vice versa. Only a couple times here and there, just for whatever reason, I just felt like this freedom of just like, I can do anything I want right now. And that's only happened a couple of times. And there was one time our sound guy, after a show like that, our longtime sound guy came up to me and gave me like a big kiss and a hug. He's like, "Oh my God, that was so amazing." So, but yeah, no. And he's a drummer. He was a drummer too. So, um, yeah. But no, to answer your question, I don't think I have a fill like that. But and I don't improv too often because I don't want to like screw up the other guys. But um, yeah, sometimes Tom will come back and he'll be like, hell yeah, give me the face like, dude, that was sick,
I'm sitting here trying
But
to think from just like a
yeah,
fan's
mostly
point of
I just
view.
try to play the parts.
I'm trying to think of a fill that you do that you have to do it. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think not really fills for you, but more maybe like footwork or maybe something you do on your hi-hat. Something that I learned from you
Yeah.
is like if you're playing on your hi-hats and say they're closed, you'll open your hi-hat almost like a cymbal hit
Yeah.
and then hit your cymbal. You'll go ta ta, and I do that because of you. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I
Oh
don't
funny.
remember anyone doing that before, maybe not so clearly. Because a lot of like, if you think of
Huh.
punk rock kind of before, 92 or so, it's like the recordings are never that great, kind of
Yeah.
muddy, and no bands were really
Yeah.
that I remember like were super tight. And I remember you guys being like the first real
Hmm.
tight band. And a lot of that was because you would choke your hi-hats or you were, like I said, minimalist. You would do a crash
Yeah.
and then go right to your ride. Like there was no fill between the ride. It was
No
dun dun
fill.
ding ding
Yeah.
ding. Yeah, and I picked up on that.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always noticed about you and always appreciated. I've said that before, but just something I've noticed about you. Where did you learn that from? Or
Yeah.
was it natural?
The open hi-hat thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't it just sound that just I don't know, I do that a lot actually. Um for some reason it sounds good to me, I guess. I don't really I don't know if I learned it from somebody else. I've never been a big learn songs guy. I mostly steal fills from recordings, and a lot of them are like 80s stuff, and it some of it is very um yeah, just be like on the radio, like In Excess or just something like that. It'll just be some song I've heard a million times on the radio, and then a fill will catch me, and ooh, that is cool. And so I'll go home and like try to figure it out and incorporate it. But but yeah, I don't know where I got that, to be honest. But
I think you made
um,
it up.
maybe Bill Stevenson did it. I'm not entirely sure.
What
Okay,
what
I
didn't
made it
Bill do, right?
up.
I mean,
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. He
I'm
was
I,
definitely my like beacon. So
I don't think there's an episode yet that Bill hasn't been brought up at least at least one time. Like the dude
yeah.
definitely had a pretty huge impact on a lot of people.
We're all inspired by Bill.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. He is, and it's not even like he's up there with the masters in my mind. And it's not even that like, oh, he's in the punk rock scene, he's really great. No, I think it goes all the way to everything. And I don't think I'm overstating that, but having watched him play so many times through the years, like, and also he's a songwriter, and it's just, and a producer and engineer and all that stuff. Like, yeah, he's, yeah,
Yeah, he's the real deal.
ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I think for a lot of us too, like
Yeah,
maybe for myself personally, I obviously can't speak for you guys, but the drumming in the beginning was purely just functionality and to be in a band and to play with your friends and have a good time. But I feel like for a lot of us, when it grows past that, like you know, punk and metal are like my first loves and like a lot of like the 80s, like Public Enemy, hip hop and stuff like that. But it gets to a point too where the love for the drums sort of transcends like genres, and I think you're correct where Bill,
yeah,
um I don't think of Bill as like, oh, he's a punk rock drummer. Like um
right.
I feel like that guy can do so much more. And I always reference that All song, Box. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Like
Yeah,
I still like it, that whatever he's playing in that center part, like it doesn't make sense, but it just fucking works so well. And
yeah,
I think to be able to, I don't. I'm going to use this term loosely. To it takes a special drummer to I guess to overplay in a sense, but have no one notice that it's a lot. Like he plays very busy parts,
Right.
but they just sound right. And I feel like a lot of other drummers that try to do that, it would sound off. But the other side of that coin is where um the opposite could be said about a more simple drummer where it's like, I mean, could you picture Bill not doing that? Would it sound good? So I think just kind of sticking
Right.
with what you can do, but obviously, like you said, trying to progress, work different stuff into it is just as much credit
Yeah.
to you and other drummers who kind of keep it on the simple side too. But yeah, Bill, geez. But we're
Yeah.
here to talk about you though, so enough about
Right.
enough about
No,
Bill.
yeah, I talk about him a lot. He is, yeah.
Who else was a big
Okay.
one for you?
Um, gosh.
It can be outside of the
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, more recently, I would say, because Bill was someone, I was 15 and heard my first Descendants, someone gave me a copy of I Don't Want to Grow Up, and I was just like, whoa, that's it. That's it. That is what I want to sound like. But more recently, yeah, Elon Rubin is somebody that I don't know if I would necessarily. He's an influence in a different way, where it's more like he's inspired me to like get back to the drawing board and get back to the practice and stuff. Where it's just like he's kind of a monster. He's sort of John Bonham-y, but like crazy chops, and he does everything too. Like I've always loved drummers that play their instruments. I do. I mean, I'm a hack at it, but I do play some other stuff and enough, I guess. But uh, he's a like incredible piano player, incredible guitar. It's just like, man, So I think in all those, having all of that informs your drumming. Like I'm pretty sure his drumming is still his number one love, but all that the knowledge from those other instruments comes in and
surely.
really like tightens up his drumming. Yeah. So Stuart Copeland, huge. Uh, the I'm gonna Stan Lynch, who played for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers forever and
Yep.
ever. Absolutely fantastic drummer. Um, Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, even like Larry Mullen Jr. from U2, like I really like his stuff. That is like, as far as like simple drumming, but the right part being the thing that like makes it stand out. I took a lot of that from him. I love his drumming. I know he gets a lot of flack. Oh, he sucks or whatever, but I don't think so. Um, yeah, yeah. Guys that kind of think orchestrally in a way, where like they're really like, how's this part going to make the music pop the most? And that's kind of always my mindset for stuff too, or I'm trying to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny after all these years, we're still trying to figure stuff out, 30 plus years. Like, and we're
Yeah.
like, man, I'm finally to a point where I can kind of think outside the box now. Now I want to do different things. Now I
Yeah.
want to, it's
Yeah.
so weird how that
Yeah.
happens. Like, I feel like, even though I'm been playing for 30 years, I feel like I'm almost just starting again. It's very
Yep.
strange to me. It's well, and I think it's technology. A lot of technology. You have so much access to things now. Back when I was a teenager, when Green Day came out, I was really like into Trey Cool's drumming, and there wasn't anything for
Oh
me to
yeah.
see. I could hear it, but then um they did that live show. What was that called?
A,
Um
a concert?
yeah, the
I'm just
concert, the
kidding.
live show. It's funny because I know it, but I can't remember it.
With the Woodstock with the mud
No,
chucking?
it was like at the Palladium or something like that, or I can't remember. Anyway, Jaded in
Mm,
Chicago, but I finally got to see him play. I got to see like what it would show like a quick
yeah.
camera angle. I'm like, oh, that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. And that was kind of the beginning of me like
Hmm.
trying to like
Yeah.
figuring things out. But technology these days, you can just get on YouTube and see anybody. There's drum cams now.
Right.
The only time you would
Yep.
see anything
Yep.
like
For
that would
sure.
be in a Guitar Center,
Yeah.
when they were playing their VHS tape of some classical drummer, you know.
Right. Yeah. 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 Trey Cool is somebody I almost never mentioned, but is definitely an influence. Yeah. As far
Ye-
as, my playing and stuff like that. Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
and
I've
that
been
goes
listening
back
to
to
him as almost as long as I've been listening to Bill. And
yeah, same, and that goes back to that tight drummer mentality that I'm attracted to. Very tight drummer, and
yeah.
you're a very
Yeah.
tight drummer. So you
Yeah.
and Trey and Bill, I really paid attention to. In my drumming journey and
Yeah.
growing up.
Right. Yeah. Me too. Other than myself. Same.
I hope you paid attention to yourself.
Oh yeah. No, no, I did. I did.
It's weird sometimes to think too of like how many of those like late 70s, early 80s punk bands had such good drummers, but the recording quality was so bad that like you couldn't really even make out what they were doing.
Yeah.
Like I would love to hear I don't know if you're from like a Subhumans fan, but Trotsky, like the drummer from that, like now going back and listening to it, like they wrote really interesting songs that were like melodic, but I had never heard someone like just putting a cowbell in like a mid-tempo punk song. Like I would
Mm,
just love to hear that stuff and really be able to like
yeah.
hear every kick pattern. And I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, where every snare hit, all you hear is just
Oh
wires.
yeah.
Like there's no tone of the drum, which had like that definitely had a charm to it that I grew up playing with, but it was impossible to figure stuff out. So I think that's another thing with the internet that we're lucky to
Right.
have is just like you can hear every single hit, whether you can actually do it or not. Is like
Right.
that's the
Right. For
challenge.
sure.
But I think there's a lot of drummers from that era that maybe just don't get the credit they deserve. I can't remember the dudes played in the Zero Boys. Like a lot of those early bands, like those drummers were
Yeah.
beasts, but you just couldn't really hear, and the cymbal
Yeah.
hits sounded like just ripping cardboard in your ear. So yeah, and like watching those dudes do playthroughs
Someone
now.
else I wanted to. Yeah. 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 Someone else I wanted to mention was Topper Headon from The Clash. I mean, their recordings were not maybe as low budget as like the Subhumans or whatever, but still some of the same where they're kind of rough. But yeah, his parts incredible drummer. I don't know if you guys
London,
listen to the Clash at all, but
London, dude. I got my
yeah.
Know Your Rights stained glass Brett back there. I'll give a quick
Sorry,
shout
not
out
to say
to
that.
my buddy Brett, BW Glassworks on Instagram. Buy stuff from him. It's cool. Not you,
Nice,
but the people
nice.
listening. I mean, you can buy something too. But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah, for sure.
shameless plug. Brett and I have been playing music together since we were 12. He's my brother.
Nice,
So, anyways, but
nice,
yeah,
cool.
those hi-hat parts in London Calling. Like he is
Oh,
another drummer that was just like it's like you don't
yeah,
appreciate it when you're younger, and then listening to it when you're a little bit older, you're like, dude, like he knew he was playing the right parts. When I was always like, this guy's not that good.
oh,
It's not busy enough. And you listen to it now, and you're like, it's so perfectly placed. And
yes, and that's another one of those kind of like a drummer that sort of thinks like every or like orchestrally, like where every part has something that supports the music, but is also just slightly different enough to where you're like, oh, there's some new element of interest in the drumming. Like London Calling, I was a little while ago just like, I'm gonna learn this song, and I was like, this is so interesting. Like the weird little hi-hat. It's
it's
not
hard.
easy.
It's a hard
Some of the
song.
like swing, some of yes, some of the swingy stuff that he's doing, you're just like, what?
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, too, that I think that kick is just boom, 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 and I think
Yeah.
landing your kick in the snare at the exact same time is probably one of like the hardest things about playing drums that people don't really realize. Of like, That's why
Oh
I've
yeah.
looked up to so many reggae drummers just to be able to do that drop of the rim click and the bass drum hit at the same time. But
Yeah, because if those flam, it's like, ugh.
yep, exactly. But it's cool too because I'm assuming that was, especially with that song, like that was before the engineer was like, don't worry, we can just slide the kick over a little bit. Like that dude was like a drum
Right,
machine. Like he had
exactly.
to be like right on like that. But yeah, that was such a
Yes.
cool era of music that I'm glad we all like still have a record of. And I would just love to see a playthrough of him doing that
Yep.
now.
So
Oh yeah.
what are you playing
Yeah,
currently?
for sure. As far as like a drum setup,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So I'm with DW right now for drums and hardware. Uh, so I have a DW, like at the studio, I have a DW performance series. At home, I have a DW design series. I really like the design line. Honestly, mostly because of the size of the lugs. I like little lugs. But I've got at home I've got the gray. It's just like a gray drum set, which is my ode to Bill Stevenson.
The Battleship Gray.
Um, but yeah, I've got yeah, battle. Yep, exactly. F-111 gray. Um, yeah, and I love that kit. So those are my two, home studio. But I've had a lot of stuff, different stuff in the past. Um, and then cymbals wise, I'm just doing Zildjians, A's, and then K's, that kind of thing. But I love the A's. I really do. It's just they just sound like a cymbal should sound, and there was a couple of years ago, I think it was, Mike was like, we need to get some new cymbals. Oh, okay.
Yay.
And we were
That's such a
about to
bass player
record
thing to
something.
say.
Well, yeah, I think from the demos, he wasn't liking the way they were
Mhm.
sounding, and so I said, okay, yeah, I definitely know what I want to get. And he was very like, you want to get stuff that sounds good in the studio, not for live, or not necessarily just for live. And I was like, yeah, I know just the thing. And he was like, he was very, I don't think he believed me. But then I ordered Zildjian A's, and he was like, the cymbals sound so good. I'm like, I got you covered. Don't worry about it.
And in the meantime, I've made
So
some
yeah, so
adjustments
I just
to
love
the
those.
knobs on your bass amp. Right? Like if
Yeah,
you
I
did that
know.
shit would
Yeah.
be
What's the difference between the A's and the A
Yeah.
customs? Because I play the A customs and I love how those sound, but I didn't know if there was a huge difference between A's
Yeah.
and A custom.
a couple
I mean,
letters in the
I've never
symbol.
done like an A B. Yeah. Um, the A customs are like polished, right?
Yes.
And the A's are just they're lathed and unpolished.
Mm.
So they're a little more muted. They're like a kind of a matte almost. It's just unpolished. It's just you can see all the lathing and stuff. Um, but as far as sound, yeah, I'm not entirely probably not as bright, like maybe a little darker.
Mm.
So, but yeah, I bought those a couple years back, and I'm just like, yeah, I like these. I do use the Sweet K also. Um, that that's kind of my like show rig. I only bring cymbals because when we do flyouts and stuff like that, I rent everything, which for the most part is great. Um, but yeah, I do bring cymbals because that was like the one thing that was like, gosh,
Can't tune a
sometimes
cymbal.
it's just kind of like a whatever you get is whatever you get. Exactly, exactly. And then, you might have like they're too small or too big, usually too small. Um, yeah, so we were able to get it so I could bring some cymbals, and yeah, so I bring a set of Sweet K's, and it's been nice.
Those are great. Those are great kits.
Yeah.
I love the sweets, man. They're
Yeah.
so good. Now have you just generally been like
Yeah.
a one up, one down, two toms, snare, pretty simple setup?
Yeah, I've been like that. Yeah, pretty much ever. When I got this design kit. It's a 5 piece, and so it's got a 10-inch and a 10-inch rack tom and a 12-inch rack tom. And I did do a setup with the two toms, um, not like where they were both on the left side of my kick drum, and I messed around with the setup like that, like, oh, maybe I'll try this, and it was fun, but it was nothing I could really, as far as like, yeah, it was. I was just like, nah, I got to stick to the one up, one down, you know. So fun to play around, but yeah, because those 10-inch toms, man, they just boom, man, they just explode. I really like them, but no, I just stick with the either a 12 or a 13 and a 16.
What's
It's
your
always
That's
fun.
been my thing for.
It's always fun to play like a big kit with a bunch of toms, and just have a blast,
Yeah,
just for fun. But then you're like, at the end of the
yeah,
day, you're like, I like my 4 piece, rack tom, floor tom, snare, what I'm
yeah,
comfortable with.
exactly. Right, and it's like that when I had the two toms up top, like I had to push the hi-hat so far over, and I was like, this is really awkward.
yeah?
It would just change the geometry of everything, and I was like, nah.
Yeah, you're one of those guys that likes everything like it's got its place. Not quite like
Yep,
Bill specific maybe, but you know,
right. But
the
close, yeah. I've
right.
seen him like him and Rhino like with the drums, and it's so funny.
Yeah, I got to help Bill
Yeah.
set up his kit last year, and I swear we
Oh,
spent
nice.
2 hours working on that thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was a
I
little
believe it.
one-off
Yeah.
show that they do every year in Fort Collins called Groveridge,
Oh, nice.
and I got to play a
Oh, nice.
song on his kit, and I've talked about this before on another episode, but that was a very difficult kit to play. The way he has everything set up, everything's
Mm-hmm.
very close and tight, and I'm tall and have long arms.
Yep.
So I played Mr.
Yeah.
Bass, and I got through it okay,
Okay.
but it was difficult
Yeah.
playing his setup, but it's so specific, and I
Oh, for
love it.
sure.
I love how he does it. And I learned a little bit of his lingo too.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
He
all,
doesn't
all
have
the
any.
stuff that Rhino has to know.
Yeah, but he doesn't have any fiddle
Yeah.
faddle though, Yuri. You have the fiddle faddle. I've heard. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Before we stray too far from gear,
Yeah.
I guess two questions. The main snare drum. Like, do you use brass,
Yeah.
wood? Like, what do you?
So I have an aluminum snare, kind of basically a DW version of an acrylite, essentially.
Hmm?
Um, and that's the one that kind of everyone is the happiest with. Um, I have a bunch of snares, but like when we were recording, like the last record, that aluminum was like the thing we used for all the really fast stuff. I had just a simple maple, like 6.5 by 14. That was like all the mid tempo stuff, and then I have it's a maple mahogany top edge snare that we used for all like the kind of the low, not slow, but the slowest songs, and I tune them kind of accordingly, high, low, or medium and low, and
Man,
that
that
seemed to work the best.
I gotta say, I'm a little jealous that you are in a band with people that notice different snare drums. Like, actually, like that's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah, I think it was last year. Mike was like, "I don't like that snare drum." I had made a snare drum, just or assembled a snare drum from parts I bought online, and it's a pretty small. I think it's a 5 inches deep. It's a hammered brass thing, and it's it pops, and he just wasn't into it, and he's like, and so I brought that aluminum snare back. He's like, yeah, 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 that's the one, that's the one. So Yeah, and it is great. It's a great snare drum for sure. Yeah. So,
And then
at home I have a brass.
oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I have a yeah, at home I have a brass snare that's kind of my main snare. Um, yeah, it's like a 3 millimeters thick, or it's pretty heavy, pretty beefy. Kind of like it's as close as I can get with my budget to like a Tama Bell brass or something like that. So
Yeah, Matt knows I'm a brass boy too. I have a couple of like the ES, the Tama ES ones, but yeah, it's the same thing. The other thing I wanted to ask is, over the years, I'm assuming you've seen a few kits kind of come and go in and out of your
oh
possession.
yeah,
Do you have like
yeah,
do you have a regret setup
oh
that you're
yeah.
like, what is it?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do have a regret setup. Yep. So I bought an AOT kit when AOT was like a brand new thing. I don't even. I think there was a drum shop in Seattle, North Seattle, called the Drum Garage, and I would go there. It's quite a trip. I would take the ferry. It was like, an hour and a half to 2 hour trip to go over to this little drum shop in a Seattle suburb. The funny thing was, Jason McGurr, who is the drummer for Death Cab for Cutie, um, was an instructor at that drum shop. And so I've known Jason for a long time, and from back before he was in Death Cab. But yeah, those guys had like an AOT catalog, and I was just like, I saw the wooden hoops, and I was just like, laser beam in. I thought that was the coolest looking drums that I've ever seen. And so I ended up buying an AOT kit from through them, you know, and the thing is, it was like, it was a work of art. I think the color was red walnut. It was just like a matte wood finish, and it had like the matching hoops, and it was a little finicky. I will say that about it. Like, um, yeah, this.
Well, those are
But
three plies, right?
once I sort of figured out, I don't recall how thick the
Okay.
shells were, but they sounded huge. And I had them for a few years, toured with them and stuff, and then eventually got rid of them. But yeah, that's the kit that got away. I mean, I didn't give it away, but yeah, I wish I would have hung on to that one. I
So
wish I would have hung on to that one for sure.
I remember
Just
that kit because
yeah.
that was maybe in the late 90s, I
Oh, okay.
think. And what I remember
Yeah, I
most
bought
about
that
it
in.
was you had it taped off where it said Ayot to say Yuri.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yep. Yeah, totally.
I
Yeah, it
so
worked. It was like, oh yeah.
it did. I was blown away by that. And I think you played it
Yeah.
because I have a funny story. Well, not really funny, but I was playing in a band called Squad 50 in 98, 99. I
Yeah.
was filling in and we played with you guys at Janus. I guess it was called Janus Landing back then in
Yeah.
Florida and St. Pete. And I think it was
Yeah.
us, you guys, Newfound Glory, and Shades Apart, I think. And I remember
Yeah.
I was playing our set, and I look over, and you're sitting there on the stairs watching me, and I just start sweating bullets. I'm like 19 years old. Actually, I was
Yeah.
18. I'd turned 19 the 25th of March,
Mm.
and this was like the 20th of March. So I was 18 years
Yeah.
old, and and one of my
Oh wow.
drumming, favorites is sitting there watching me, and
The oh,
it was
Yeah.
just such a crazy cool feeling. And then I remember after the show, we all went to IHOP, and you and I sat at a table and talked drums for 2 hours, and then that's the last time
That's
I saw
cool.
you.
Yeah. Oh, funny.
well, dude,
That's
that's
great.
what's like
Yeah.
the
That's
funniest about
amazing.
all that stuff is like, I mean, you were probably what, only 4 years, 5 years, Matt senior at that point. But when you're 19 and
Yeah.
someone's like 24,
Yeah.
you're like, oh
Yeah.
my
I was,
God, that's an adult. Where it's like, it's just like you're probably watching other
yeah.
drummers
Yeah.
play and go like,
Totally.
being
Oh,
kind of awestruck by them. So I always love that about like a lot of like
oh,
punk and
absolutely.
those other sort of adjacent scenes is like everyone was for the most part just really nice and supportive, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't say of all the bands we've toured with, I've had people ask me through the years, oh, who was the worst and whatever. I mean, we really,
Who was it?
um,
I was kidding.
I can't,
Dish girl dish.
you know, yeah, no, everyone is amazing. We've just absolutely everyone that we've toured with has just been so cool. So yeah, just to reiterate what you're saying, it's a really cool scene to be a part of.
Yeah, I think we kind of knew this already, but we're learning through doing this podcast that everyone's just really cool and fun to talk to and very
Yeah,
willing to share stories and talk about their gear and their lives and everything. It's just I'm actually kind of blown away a little bit by how friendly everybody has been. I knew you
yeah,
were
that's
friendly.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, this
Yeah,
one's gonna
that's
be
awesome.
easy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Nice.
You're
What are you guys what are your future plans? I know you said you got an album coming out. Are you you're doing that and
Well,
then touring?
yeah, so yeah, we're gonna be demoing for, you know, X number of months. I'm not sure. So whenever our next record comes out, I actually have no idea, but we're starting the process. So, which is exciting. And then in the fall, we're starting to look at playing some shows. So yeah, not sure where yet. I can't really like advertise anything because I don't know. But yeah, we're gonna get back into it the second half of the year and then continue into 2026. So yeah, we'll be out there.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll have to come out and see you
yeah. Oh,
guys.
I
It's
can't
been a
wait.
while.
Can't wait. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we were just in Texas. Yeah, we played Dallas.
You know, it's funny. I saw I guess you guys played, I don't know, this was maybe gosh, it been 20 years already? I remember seeing Stefan Edgerton was he drum teching for you? Was that what he was doing?
He was drum teching, but he was doing multiple jobs. Like he was doing our monitors, our in-ear monitors, and just kind of everything, which is hilarious. But Stefan is one of the best human beings I've ever met in my entire life.
He's become a family
You could
friend of ours.
probably, if you've hung out with him, yeah, he's ridiculous, and it was so fun to get to have him on the road with us for a couple of years.
Amazing
Yeah.
drummer as well.
Yes, yes, yeah. I remember we worked with him years ago, and I was talking to him about one thing I always wanted to do was you know, do a record with Bill and Stefan. And he's like, honestly, Bill doesn't really care that much about the drums. Like, he's more about the guitars and the vocals and stuff. He's like, I'm the one that really is the guy that really is, concerned with the drums. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And he was great. He was a
It
lot of
makes
fun.
sense.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Because Bill, you know, I, yeah, he's probably just, yeah, the drums. Obviously they're important, but he's focusing on the song as a whole, and Stefan was too. I don't want to take that away from him, but yeah, it was a lot of fun working with him, and yeah, love Stefan.
Yeah,
Absolutely
me
love
too. He's the
Stefan.
sweetest guy ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Christian, I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I already forgot what I was gonna say. I was probably just gonna make a bad joke anyways, dude. It wasn't I'm
That's
sure
your
it wasn't
forte.
anything too important, so I wouldn't worry about it at all. But yeah, man, I think we're kind of quickly approaching the hour and a half mark. I don't know if we want to
Okay, cool.
keep you too long here, and we'd love to have you back for a round two sometime if
Yeah,
you'd
for
be
sure.
into it.
Be a lot of fun. Yeah.
We do tend to close. Matt, I'm sorry. Did you have?
No.
I didn't want to prematurely.
No,
Well, it's just
we're
every
good.
time we say we approach the certain mark, we usually go for another 20 minutes anyways.
Yeah.
It's like, but we do tend to close out on a segment called "Questions from My Kids."
Okay.
So my youngest was curious. I usually like watch a music video with them and of whoever we're about to interview, and how you keep your glasses on was a question.
You know, that so it's weird now. It's not so much of an issue, but when I was younger, like I had to like, like some drummers twirl their drumsticks. I had to like work in the finger push, while I'm while playing. Boop. And I might still have to do it, but it's such an unconscious thing, you know? But yeah, if I get a break between songs, I'll pull them off and, wipe them down. For a while there, I was doing like the Milo Ackerman thing with like the strap in the back, which was okay. But then like the sweat would like build up in my glasses and I couldn't take them off to like get all that stuff out. So I stopped doing that. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think I just have better glasses now. Before they were just like, slide down my face, and I'm like, oh my God, here it goes. I've knocked, yeah, I've knocked my glasses off several times. They've never broken, thankfully, because I like never bring a backup pair. But yeah, just got better glasses. I think that's how I keep them on.
And then the other question was from my middle daughter is what's with the X's? Like I told her what it stood for, and she's like, I don't understand why there's X's. And honestly, too, obviously, you don't have to seriously answer these questions. I just thought they're funny to put people on the spot with this shit.
Well, no, but a lot of people have asked about the X's, and I'm the one that came up with the X's. I didn't, subsequently as as years went on, I did see, DI also uses little X's, but I honestly had never heard of them at the time, so I did not steal it. But when we first started, we were magnified plaid. And then I was just doodling, band, just logos or whatever. And I just did M and P and put little X's there. And then so from then on, we became both. MXPX was kind of like our shorthand that we'd use amongst ourselves, even though the flyers would say magnified plaid. And then when we got signed to Tooth and Nail, that was when we kind of decided to emphasize MXPX over magnified plaid. And then we just kind of slowly went away from magnified plaid, even though technically that is still the band name along with MXPX. No one says magnified plaid.
Well, I'm going to have to let her know that she tried to be a smart ass and asked a funny question and it backfired and it was actually a good one. So
nice.
Your little interviewers over here.
Yeah. Oh, and I realized we have a mutual friend, Mr. Gary Barbo.
Oh,
your old
merch
guy.
Yeah, I love Gary.
He'll text me from time to time and be like, "Hey, man, what's up?" Because we're both in Texas.
Nice.
And I just thought of him when you were talking. I just thought of Gary, and he was always such a cool guy. And I see him quite often, honestly, like when he comes around. So I'll have to.
That's awesome.
I'll have to shoot him a text. I'll shoot him this episode too whenever it comes out, and he'll be tickled about that, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, love Gary for sure. Yeah, I still tell Gary stories to people. So he like our crazy merch guy. You would not believe it.
I love him.
No,
he's so great.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we will let you go, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. Your morning. I hope you didn't have to take off work or anything crazy like that just to do this with us, but whatever you had to do, we appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
Yes, that's yeah. Happy to do it, guys.
Well, thank you so much, and
See ya.
we will stay in touch, and maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah, of
I'd
course.
really like to ask you about some of the recording sessions and the process of like life in general, and slowly going away the
Yeah,
buffalo, which is my favorite record. Um, those are some things that I would love to get into if we did another one. So stay tuned. There might be a part two.
yeah. Okay, that's good to know. I yeah, I could actually think about some stuff ahead of time and have some
Yeah, we'll certainly give you
quality
time.
answers for you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
All
Awesome, man.
right.
Thank you, man.
Thank
Have
you,
a good day.
Yuri.
cool. All right.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
All right. Bye.